Hey, I got a real good one for you today. It's a real good one. But before I get started, what I need you to do is to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, get them likes up. That's right, get the likes up and make sure you share this video. All you have to do is click the share button, hit the copy when you see the link, drop it on your social media pages, let people know we're talking about something over here at Maximum Impact, where we are not just we're not just here for the sake of having a channel, but we're here to educate, inspire, empower, and to create travel experiences where you can educate yourself along the way. And so, a lot of the things I talk about as we bridge the gap between Africa and the African diaspora, that is something that is very important to me. Bridging the gap. I want you to take a look at this here real quick. Bridging the gap between Africa and the African diaspora. That's what we do. I like for people to have that the opportunity to what's the word for them to be able to see for themselves. And when they see for themselves, I want to do that again because I think that was a little off there. Let me show you the bridging the gap. There we go, bridging the gap. That's what I like to do, bridging the gap, because that's really what it's all about. And that's me standing on two continents, North America and Africa, and being able to bring that connection. And that really represents my genetic makeup and who I am. Now, here's a question that has come up because I did a talk about it, and I talked. Check the video out where they were talking about how many the ladies were saying that they're Nigerian and they get this talk before they come to America to stay away from Black Americans. And because we're gangbangers, drug addicts, gonna get you pregnant, gonna do all these different things. And so I did a whole extensive talk about that. Check out that video, and you'll be able to see what I had to say. But now I'm doing the flip side of it. Here's the flip side of the video. Why do some Black, aka African Americans, mistreat African immigrants, or vice versa? I want to talk about the other side of this, because if I'm going to be bridging the gap, one, we can't be afraid to have conversations. There's some people, man, we just don't need to talk about it. We just need to move on. But this is what's happening. I mean, this is still people having these conversations. So at least there needs to be some sort of conversation to offset some of the foolishness that's going on out here, so people can kind of say, let's talk about it. Because I'll tell you some of my journey and some of the things I was told and taught and thought and did and all kinds of things along the way. Now, let me say this before I get into this. I will not generalize and speak. I will not generalize, but I will speak from personal experience also. So the first thing is this: not all. One thing that reveals the level of someone's communication experience, or maturity, I should say, communication maturity, is their ability or inability to generalize or not generalize. So sometimes you generalize, but you have to be careful, because not all people think a particular way. If that were the case, you would have a unified front that would dominate the world. And the reason why you don't have that, you have it in one sense when you look at imperialism, but when you talk about culturally and all of that, you have so many different cultures and religions and opinions and all of that, because not everyone thinks the same. Not everyone behaves the same way. Not everyone believes the same way. So when somebody say, yeah, y'all African Americans, y'all like that Western culture and y'all like those Western morals and everything, I said, well, if you really hear how a lot of African Americans or Black Americans or whatever you want to call us, if you really get within that community, you find out that no, everybody doesn't think that way. Everybody doesn't feel that way. Everybody's not trying to be a gangbanger. There are parents who sitting down with their children saying, listen, don't go out here and get caught up with these people. You find yourself in jail because you know you have a system that's already in place that's designed to put you in jail. If you mess up, it's going to give you harsher penalties. So that's a different kind of conversation. So when you have people, coming over from other places, and for those who do get that talk, you understand everybody doesn't get that talk, but some people do get the talk. So for those who do get the talk, they need to be educated properly to say, well, everybody, you might be missing out on your blessing because you're sitting up here listening to somebody who's probably picked something up from the media, and then they're sitting up here repeating it. And that's why I said, did the talk, so who told you this? And somebody had to tell us, yeah, okay, but if you only take one opinion or one thought, and you don't allow another thought to come along and give you a different perspective, then you're going to run off and keep telling misinformation or potentially tell misinformation over and over and repeat it. And that's how I got in the condition that I was in as a child. When I was growing up, the topic of Africa was always negative. No one ever talked about traveling to Africa. And as a matter of fact, my family in Summerville, South Carolina, right outside of Charleston, the majority, notice I didn't say everybody, the majority will tell you they weren't African or avoided being African, but they would go to churches that had African Methodist Episcopal or African Methodist Episcopal Zion, but not once, not one time do I ever remember going to any of those churches and them talking about Africa and saying this is where these are, you kind of knew from watching Roots. I mean, like the majority of our education came from Roots, telling us this is who Africans were and that narrative. So again, now we can get into this a little bit and answer the question, because I heard this, in the comments. I read it in the comments where people talking about, well, a lot of African immigrants come to America and they encounter Black Americans and are treated poorly by Black Americans. And I will say, yes, some do, not all. Some do, not all. Just like there's some gangbangers and all of that, but not all. And just like there's some people who might not treat Black Americans a particular way, but not all Africans treat Black Americans that way. So once we get that not all to understand and remove the generalization, now we can have an intelligent conversation. Now we can have a conversation where we get to some of the root causes of why we think the way that we do. So why do we think the way that we do? Oftentimes it's because of media perceptions or entertainment perceptions, and that's just another form of media. But if the news media reports that, so-and-so got kidnapped in Nigeria, well, the last place you're going to want to go is Nigeria. And then if on top of that, you hear that negative narrative over and over and over and over and over and over and over again about Nigeria, different parts of Africa, something happened in South Africa, this is going on in Mozambique, this is what's happening in Rwanda, this is what's happening in Sierra Leone, they got a civil war somewhere, they got this going on in Liberia, that's happening. So if the Western media chooses those bits and pieces of context to be able to share with the world and the Western world, which then influences the rest of the world, now that narrative becomes recycled. And so the same thing happens, just like for the people who were talking about the talk that were had about Black Americans. Well, there's a talk that some people have here in America about those same people in Africa. But people don't know, so they cross each other or they encounter each other with these narratives that have been embedded into their mindset, and not from people who have been able to be objective and present the information in a mature way. So that's why you have people sitting up in Uganda right now talking about, I don't want to go to Ghana because I'm mad at Ghana because of what Ghana did in the slave trade. And Ghana did this, and Ghana sold my ancestor, and Ghana did this, and Ghana did that. And it's like, yo, Slim, bro, Ghana didn't exist, man. Ghana is really a new invention after slavery. Ghana didn't exist, bro. Sis, didn't exist. So why are you upset with Ghana? Now, who you should be upset with should be the UK, Portugal, France, Italy, Spain, the Netherlands, Switzerland. That's who you should be upset with. But I see these same people who are upset with Africa taking their behinds right up in there in them European countries, and right here from America, running right up in the European countries, talking about, yes, look at me, I've made it, y'all, I'm somebody, I'm refined, but yet upset at Africa, upset at Ghana, or pick a country that didn't even exist. And then when you even take the system that was formed, it was formed by the colonial master. Anyway. Well, I'm talking about the tribes. Okay, so pick a tribe. Which one? Because every tribe on the continent of Africa was not a part of that, It don't matter. I just want to be mad at somebody, so I got to find somebody. The easiest person to be mad at is somebody who looks like me. The easiest person to be mad at is somebody who looks like me. And somebody who I feel is less than me, because I believe that I'm superior because I'm in America, and I believe that we this, that, and the other, and I believe telling you, I've heard some things in these comments. I read them. All right, so here we go. So some of the media perceptions that we were told about each other, but then some Black African Americans mistreat African immigrants because someone told them they were coming to take our opportunities. And again, if you already feel victimized, if you're already offended, if you're already upset, if you're already feeling like, somebody's out to get you, and someone tells you that this person coming over here is coming to take your opportunity, then it could trigger something. And that's what I see happening. A lot of people, like in the comments, in my comments, they're triggered. If you even speak objectively, they get triggered. It's like something hits them. It's like, you mean to tell me that you're going to stop and think you're not just going to go with what I tell you? You're going to dare. So it's like something overtakes them. And you're like, yo, it's all right. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay to say not all. It's okay to think that, maybe you were given just one side of the story, but there might be another side of the story. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay to think that way. But I'm telling you, it gets deep. It gets deep out here. And some people just want to be in that state without realizing that it's self-destructive and it's all programmed. It's all by design for them to behave the way that they're behaving without even realizing what even happened. So when you talk about the treatment of other people, here's one thing I want you to understand. So somebody was told they were coming to take our opportunities. That triggers something, and then now it turns into, and maybe they are coming to take the opportunities. Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, wherever opportunity is, shoot, we would go. Wherever an opportunity is, that's where people are going to go. That's the bottom line. So that's just a reality. Get over it and handle your business, position yourself so somebody can't take your opportunity. That solves that problem on some levels. America is granting the visa to these immigrants, not Black America, not Black Americans. And most don't know Black American history. These people aren't sitting up. First of all, you got to understand their colonial masters control their education. Their education has been stripped down the same way our education has been stripped down in America. Their languages have maybe not been stolen completely, but their languages have been demonized to the point where, according to interviews that I've had recently, people are being beaten and whipped for speaking their own indigenous languages. So you got to stop and ask yourself these questions. Like, these people have been abused too. These people are escaping same things. You see people going over to Africa trying to escape American colonial rule. Then you see people coming from Africa to America to escape their colonial rule, whichever it is, Francophone, Anglophone, whichever phone it is, country. So people are dealing with the same thing, but thinking that they're dealing with something opposite when they're really dealing with the same thing. Systems of oppression that keep opportunities away from them. So some people are trying to figure out, well, why are you going over to Africa? Well, because there are opportunities over there they might not be able to see in America. Why do you want to go to America? Why don't you stay in your home country? Well, because there might be some opportunities in America that I don't have here, that my skill set might not be able to be used here. Just depends on what somebody's situation is. So just to remind everybody, America's granting the visa, not Black Americans. And most Black Americans, and here's the reality, most Black Americans don't know Black American history. So how in the world are you going to expect an immigrant to know Black American history enough to respect the fight and to respect the sacrifices that our ancestors made? Most of us don't even understand the magnitude of it outside of what a colonized white supremacy educational system taught us with their curriculums and their books. Now, I'm telling you from my personal experience growing up, my grandparents did not talk. I would even ask them, so what did y'all deal with racism? They just stayed quiet. They just sat there, didn't say much of anything. So I'm relying on the history books where they should have been running their mouth. My great-grandparents never said this is what was going on, for real. Now, I finally have had the opportunity to talk to my aunt, who's my father's sister. She's 85 years old, and she's giving me the real. At this stage of my life, I'm finally able to get the real. Now, I know some people say, well, my big mama, she sat down and she told us everything. That's great. That's what we needed, more big mamas and big daddies or whoever, to be able to sit down and give us this information. But I'm saying it from the standpoint of people are saying when people come and get an opportunity, if they're already if the media has already controlled their mind, and they're coming over, they're already thinking one thing. They're not even thinking about Black American history. Much of the Black American history, most of these people know might be George Floyd or Trayvon. or Sandra Bland. They might know that. They might know a little Barack Obama, maybe heard a little something about Martin Luther King. But as far as them knowing the depths of Black American history, most don't know it. So how can they respect something they don't know? Now, I know when I was growing up, the way that we would see Africans, and I'm going to just break this thing down. The way we would see Africans, one, is in a monolith. So if they came from Africa, we didn't know the difference between Tanzania and South Africa, Ghana and Liberia, Cameroon and Malawi. We didn't know anything. Zimbabwe and Senegal. All we knew was African. And so African was always a source of teasing. Whether it was the African booty scratcher, whether it was the African, you Black African, you got nappy hair like an African, that was what we knew, and that was our narrative. And so if somebody was really dark, first thing you want to do, want to call them African. So it was a negative. That's how many of us were raised in America. Not everybody, but many of us were raised like that. So much to the point where people started teasing their own hair. I got these kitchen naps. I got this bad hair. I can't go out in the sun because I got to put an umbrella up because I don't want to get dark. And I'm going to give me some skin bleaching cream. This is what was happening in America, y'all. This is, I got to figure out, people doing things to their scalp, burning their scalps and everything like that, and doing all this type of stuff, scabs and scratching. And as soon as they get it done, they're up here doing this, poking at it because it's itching real bad. They like poke, trying to figure out how they can deal with that, the itch that's happening. Don't let them sweat. They can't swim. All these kind of things happen because of this is what was going on in Black American culture. Now you see the same thing happening in many parts of Africa. I always ask people, I said, well, what did they do with their hair before the colonizer came? What did they do? And then you begin to see the different braids and different patterns and different things that were happening in different ways to really celebrate the natural hair that was growing out of the head. But again, if you don't know this education and you believe what grandmama and them told you and who told grandmama and them and who told great granddaddy and them, let's keep going back, let's go generation to generation, take a step back. Who told? This is why I'm talking to my aunt, because it's like, okay, this is first generation before me. This is my father's sister. So tell me what you learned. And then she told me stories of extreme abuse. Hear what I'm saying. I said, now I understand. Extreme miseducation, extreme dysfunction. I said, no wonder. Because if this is what she was doing, I wonder what happened to the generation right before that, my grandmother. What was happening with her generation? I guess they had therapists to sit down and talk to about their issues. They're dealing with the effects of oppression with capitalism. They're dealing with the effects of classism and racism, and then racism within the community and abuses within the family. And they're dealing with broader racism. But then who talks about that? Oh, my aunt, I can't wait to share this interview. Oh, it is something deep. It is something deep. But again, immigrants don't know that about us. We don't know that about us. Stuff that we're told about Africans, they're swinging in trees, they're dirty, they're stinky, they don't like us, they sold us into slavery. And these are things that were passed down. So by the time we encounter each other, we don't even know. I remember growing up, even just thinking to myself and just encountering different Africans subconsciously. And this is how deep this stuff is. I'm already feeling like I'm privileged because I'm living in America. Because guess what? I picked up the white supremacy mindset. But at the same time, I'm feeling like I'm a victim. So I feel like I'm a victim of racism, but at the same time, I feel like I'm superior to those who are coming in. I feel like I'm better, some kind of weird way. I feel like I'm better, but yet I still feel like I'm a victim. And that's what you hear from a lot of people who have that kind of talk. They sound like victims, but they still believe they're better. So even like the continental African is somehow a sub, not species, but a subculture because of the ignorance. Because if you really get into what has happened and is happening, you understand the same thing is happening on both sides. Because guess what's happening over on many parts of Africa? Folks are now sitting there burning their scalps and going through the same things that we went through. They're bleaching their skin. They're looking at themselves. Oh, that's ugly. Your hair's ugly. This, that, and the other. You got nappy hair. You this is that. You're black. You just that. That type of thing is happening right now on the continent of Africa, the same way it happened about 50 years ago and up here in America. Same thing. People putting in the got something wrong with their black eyes, so they need to put blue eyes in to make themselves feel better because somebody told them that was right. And some people, well, that's my style. That's what I like. True. That's your business. I'm just saying. I'm just trying to help you understand where it came from. That's all. I'm just saying. Just trying to help you understand. So, let's see something else here. So they don't. So the other thing we don't understand, like the mistreatment, because like growing up and not even having exposure. So I didn't have exposure to people from Africa until I was probably about 13, 14 years old. And from there, it was kind of like, And they lived like right next door to me from Tanzania, lived right next door to me. I was in N401, they were N402. And so I was like, wow, okay, this is a little different. And so they were coming in from Tanzania. I mean, I literally met them like their first day off the plane from Tanzania. And so I remember we all had to be about 9 or 10 years old, somewhere in that range. And so we were all sitting in the car, and I was like, wow, this is my first experience with somebody from Africa to know it. And so I remember they couldn't even speak English, literally like straight off the plane, like couldn't speak English, didn't want to eat. Need to be careful what they were eating because they didn't want to mess up their stomach because of, didn't want to pick up that, shouldn't want to pick up that Western diet anyway. But so that just kind of watching how they evolved, and they're doing very well now, successful in the medical industry and doing a lot of big things from Tanzania. But for me, I didn't even consider, it was like by living next door to them and hanging out with them, I began to learn, wow, these are just like regular people just like me. And in the area I lived in DC, was a very culturally diverse, Latino, Indian, Asian, African. So that was good, good to be able to have those exposures. So as I got older, it wasn't even a big deal. So it wasn't like I never felt a combative thing or anything like that. But here's another thing, another reason why some black African Americans mistreat African immigrants. They might have bad experiences with immigrants who might have had a misperception about African Americans. And so now two young ladies, they told me how they were working on jobs and they work with Nigerians, and the ladies would just talk to them. The Nigerian immigrants would just treat them any kind of way, talk to them any kind of way, like they had an anger, like there was something they had against them. And they're like, well, what is the problem? And they never really understood it. So what can happen if you have that bad experience? And a brother even hit me up online. He said, man, look, I'm down here in Texas and I'm with these Nigerians and they ain't got no love for us, man. They ain't got no love for us. And this is how he came with it. He said, they ain't got no love. And I said, man, I can't discount your experience. I said, I understand what you're saying. So I can't discount it. That's your experience. I said, but what I would encourage you to do is to go meet some continental Nigerians in Nigeria. And I feel very confident you'll have a different experience. I said, because a lot of times what happens is the immigrant will come over and pick up this white supremacy Western mindset towards black Americans because the whole design is to keep everybody separated. I said, so that's what gives me more understanding into some of the attitude if you encounter it. It's not just with Nigerians. It'll be people from East Africa. It'll be from people from different places, just depending on what mindset they're coming in with and what they have been told. And so that's real. But then for us, if we're true to it, I mean, many of us here in America, many black Americans, we've had a jaded view towards them also. And so if we're going to talk about bridging the gap, the best way to bridge the gap is to be able to spend some time, maybe not with that particular mindset of people, but maybe with some people who are a bit more humble. And that's what I experienced when I went to Africa. I had no interest in going to Africa for more than 40 years. Not one. It was like down the list. I'm trying to go to all the white places and all the Asian places and all that. But my life changed when I went to that continent and I saw how misinformed I was. That's what I'm saying. And that's why I believe it's so important for Black Americans to be proactive and go see versus just listening to what somebody's telling you on YouTube or even your experience with maybe someone who has come here. Because what I've experienced is that oftentimes, if someone picks up that mindset, it's because they're hanging around that white supremacy deal, and that's what's going on. And so they're now coming in. I believe I'm better than the African American, or I'm, And so you do get people. You do have some who think like that, but not all. And that's something that is so key. Here's another thing, and I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier. Some Black Americans are straight up trifling, and they believe that they're superior to African immigrants. And it has nothing to do with my ancestors did anything. And that's the other thing I think about. Most of us don't even know the sacrifice our ancestors made. Because if you are Gen X, most of us have no clue because we grew up so sheltered. That's a lot of our attitude comes from not understanding what they went through. So we really believe we're entitled to their fight, to their struggle. And many of us haven't struggled for anything. Many of us have had everything. Many of us had checks given us. Many of us have lived. Many baby boomers protected Gen X from feeling the realities of what maybe some of those baby boomers went through. But then even a generation before that may have protected baby boomers from even feeling a lot of the effects of it. So that's one, because my mother never even talked about racism or anything like that. It was like, for her, I don't know. I think my mother was, I don't know. I'll ask her. I'll see what she says. But we never talked about that. Not once. I never had to talk about you a black man and you need to work. None of that. None of that. It was almost like I was sheltered from it until I had to get out in the world and found out, when people started calling me nigga and stuff like that. That's when I, like, wait a minute, hold on. What's going on here? That I experienced it outside of her cocoon, outside of her nest or whatever. But some Black Americans are straight up trifling. I will tell you that. Not all, though. Not all. Some African immigrants believe the media account about African Americans and look down on them. And you'll get that. And I talked about that a second ago. And that's that's real. That's real. But the media account will say that Black Americans are drug addicts and crime and alcoholics and all this other kind of stuff. And many African immigrants will come in and forget that is the very thing that's happening in their community and the very thing they're trying to get away from. Alcoholism in different countries and abuse in the relationships and all of that kind of stuff going on. A lot of that's happening in Africa, just like it's happening in America. But one of the biggest problems is the overgeneralization on both sides. And that's why I say when I go over, I have business relationships with people in Africa who take care of me the same way people take care of me in America. And it gets down to a human level. And when you begin to get past the misinformation or half information that we've been taught, that's when you open up the possibilities. I think to myself, if I never went to Africa because I'm looking at Africa through the lens of someone else and never through my own eyes, or through the lens of one bad experience, you got 1.6 billion people, but I want to look at it through the lens of one bad experience or 10 bad experiences, I don't even care enough to say, let me go find out what's really going on here. And then you find out that the classism, just like you have the classism in America, you have the uppity people who don't want to be bothered with the low class people in their mind. That's how they define it. But these are people who come from the same place, or maybe they used to be in a lower income area. Now they've risen to a higher income area. Now they want to treat the people all kinds of ways that come from the very place that they come from. I mean, that. Well, that same thing's happening on the continent of Africa as well, within the different countries. Somebody rises up. I know one dude in Ghana. He got all this money, but he treated people like trash. And I'm looking at him like, dude, man, you Kwame from the hood, man. What you talking about? And you sitting up there acting like this? For real? Or what? I don't know what his name is. I'm just throwing a name out there. I'm saying, you Kofi, you Kwame, you from round the way. And instead of building up your people, you're talking trash to them. Man, you Tyrone from, Southside, whatever. And here you are acting like you HNIC, man. Come on, what's happened to you? That's an infection on both sides. I've seen it on both sides. And it goes back to socioeconomic class. Another reason why some African Americans mistreat African immigrants is because we don't understand the diversity within our cultures. And I will say this, when I went and saw for myself, I was embarrassed because of the level of ignorance that I had. When I got off that plane in Ghana, and I said, wait a minute, I didn't feel fear. I felt peace. I wasn't particularly looking for acceptance, but nobody was tripping on me. Nobody was bothering me. They might have tried, hey man, brother, can sell something. But as far as like bothering me and worrying about being shot and worried about all this other kind of stuff, I've been in 17 countries in Africa and have not worried about that. Now I don't go to places just like in America. I got enough sense. I got street sense. I'm not going to go to the places where it's obvious that is a potential for happening. Now, if it happens outside of that, then okay. But I wasn't in that area, meaning I'm not going to go look to those areas that people warn me, saying you might not want to go in that particular area because that's what's happening. When I talk about the level of ignorance, coupled with the arrogance and the fact that I spent most of my life never questioning what I was taught, and that's what all of this is about, questioning what we've been taught, questioning the sources of information about Africa. That's all I'm saying. Some people are like, well, somebody had to tell us something, but I need to question where it's coming from. Question what I'm saying and go back and fact check it. Just because I'm telling you, don't take my word for it. Go fact check. Go see for yourself. That's what I said. Go see for yourself. See, because until I went to go see for my life was stuck, y'all. Let me say, in 2000, coming out of 2017, I said, oh no. I said, I can't keep doing this. I'd hit that American routine of doing the same thing week after week after week after week after week after week. And then them years were piling up. And I was doing the same thing. I said, there's no way in hell am I going to go leave up off of this earth. And all I've done is this for the past 25, 30, 40 years or whatever. I said, there's no way. I said, I said, I have to be intentional and make a decision. And so I decided at that point, coming out of 2017, I said, I have to be around some different people. I said, because I've been around this particular group of people, this culture, and these people talking about the same thing over and over and over, week after week after week, and they're stuck right here, but they believe they're elevating. I said, I can't be around that anymore. I said, I just can't do it. I said, I'm not looking down on anybody. I said, just for me. I said, because this life is getting by. This life is leaving quickly. And I said, before you know it, another 5 years is going to pass, and I'm going to be trying to figure out what it is I need to do. I said, there's no way. So at that point, 2017, I said, okay, if it's going to happen, I'm going to have to make decisions. And that's when I said, I've been talking about, thinking about in the back of my mind. I think, what can I do to something that's really adventurous? I've been to Bermuda. I've been to Mexico. I've been to Canada. I've been now all through the Caribbean. All right, what can I do that's adventurous? I said, let me go to Africa. Not even knowing what to expect. And I went, and my whole life changed. But I had to be proactive. I couldn't listen to those voices telling me those people don't like you over there. I couldn't listen to that foolishness Smokey Robinson talking about. All that stuff he was spitting off, he ought to be shaming himself getting up there talking about that stuff. And never have been. Credibility shot. Dude, what is wrong with you? And so at that point, I said, let me go. So here we are now. I was standing in, it didn't take long. It took me maybe, by the time I got to my hotel room, I knew that I spent most of my life believing inaccurate information. And that level of realization hits hard. It's real hard because you're what's the word? You're believing that what you believed was right. And now you're having to reconcile the fact that much of what you thought was either one-sided or completely inaccurate. And even what you see that might be true, you recognize, oh, why is it like this? Oh, because of exploitations, because of these different things, because of that happening. I knew when I was in Kumasi at the Chinese restaurant in Kumasi, Ghana, with the food that didn't even taste Chinese. I said, I have to bring people back because I'm listening to the conversations that we're having. And our conversations are so off. And if people are off in their conversations or they're one sided in their conversations, what detriment is that to them? Where you're believing something that is halfway accurate, inaccurate, maybe accurate from one person's perspective, but you haven't even considered all other perspectives. And I said, this is why many of us in America, Black Americans, miss out on opportunities because we're listening to the peanut gallery and just taking one voice. Many of us are not willing to invest our money and go see for ourselves. And so we're so busy being cheap instead of saying, what's the benefit, the investment? But that's because somebody hasn't showed us. And so that's why I try to bring interviews and allow people to see and hear perspectives, because when that happens, people say, wow, I didn't know. That's why you saw Mr. Doyle and he talked about his experience and what he saw. That's why when you see different people, when they're like, man, I had a chance to go see for myself and this is what it's done for me. So this is what I say. All the teasing and all the things that I thought as a child, when I was listening to other ignorant people, whether they're my peers or my cousins or aunts and uncles and relatives and all of that. And even the attitude that I still encounter from many Black Americans when we talk about Africa, they'll express their attitude towards me. Why are you doing that? I'm going to get, man, you can't convince me. I ain't going to try to convince you. Stay your tail right here in America. But don't complain about the insurrection. Don't complain about all that. If you're not willing to go do something different, don't be sitting around just talking now. So, hey, but you know what? If your attitude is like that, stay in America. But then the other people, like, man, you know what? This has inspired me. These are other Black Americans. So this is what I want my African brothers and sisters to understand. So you'll deal with some of that from Black America, arrogant, entitled, uppity, all that other kind of stuff. You'll deal with that from some, but then there are others who will approach you like this. Man, I want to learn. I thank you for coming. I appreciate you. Thank you. I'm coming to see you. I need to learn from you and not take anything from you. You'll encounter those. That's why I say we don't want to generalize, because you'll find that there's so many Black Americans who are willing to learn because they recognize the things that we haven't been taught, the things that we should have been taught, but we weren't. And so African American, Black American, whatever you want to call it, we're the people who trying to figure it out. And the people I talk to are the people who say, you know what, I'm willing to go learn something different. I'm willing to go see for myself. That's why you see in our interviews, it's a recurring theme over and over, because we attract a particular mindset. We attract people who are saying they don't want to live their whole life believing a narrative that someone else told them and they never went to go see for themselves. That's who we attract. That's who I talk to. And there are people on the fence with this, though, because they're like, man, I've been listening to so-and-so over here all these years on YouTube, and I got filtered in that. But you know what? I hear what you're saying because it does make sense. Why am I sitting here mad at a country that didn't even exist? If the country existed, but the country didn't exist. That system didn't exist. Some ethnic groups, some tribes played a part. But then let me just deal with them. But then how do I even know my people were the ones that particular group made? What if my people came from East Africa and they came around, or somehow they had a different route? But then I got 4,000 people in the history, and I don't know how it all plays out. And those people on the fence say, well, I don't want to be sitting around mad. Maybe I am missing out on something. You got brothers sitting over here mad in a hole in somewhere, mad as all get out at countries and people that didn't even, he's sitting at home talking about, I was sold. Like, Negro, you ain't been sold into nothing. You ain't been a slave other than in your mind, and you prison yourself. But you've never been a slave. You don't know what it's like to be whipped and chattel slavery. You don't know. You don't even have an understanding. It's almost disrespectful that you even say that you were sold into something compared to the people who were actually sold into it. Don't even understand what happened. You don't even understand. You never been a slave, but yet you all upset with that. Well, I got the trickle down effects of it. We all got the trickle down effects of it. We all got it. We all dealing with trying to figure it out. And so there's some people who are saying they don't want to be in that space anymore because they recognize that's not even productive. They're like, I've picked up someone else's offense and they don't even know why they're offended. They only have piece of the story, but I'm offended and energy and angry and barking and yelling and shaking and all kind of stuff and don't even realize that you've picked up a virus from someone else. Something that you don't even have a full contextual understanding about. So those people, they're listening and saying, you know what, I don't want to be like that. And other people say, you know, I want to do something adventurous. Let me go see for myself. And that's how you bridge the gap. And I tell people all the time, it's my love for my people on both sides. My ancestors, who I have no understanding of what they went through, really don't have an understanding, especially after talking to my Aunt Betty. I really don't understand what they went through. I have a contextual opinion of what I think they went through, and I'm putting it into my little box and formulating it and believing it based upon what I feel through my lens. But I really don't understand what they went through. But what I will not do is disgrace them or disgrace those who were fighting on the other side, because I got about 4,000 people over the past 500 years, 4,500 people or so, in my genetic history, my genealogy. And so I'm sure I had some on both sides. Some who were selling, some who were buying. I got the European side, got the whole mix of everything. So with all of that going on, I descend from the traders, meaning the ones who were selling. I descend from those who were enslaved. I descend from those who created the systems of oppression. So if I'm going to be mad at anybody, I guess I need to be mad at myself. Now, people don't like when they hear that. They don't like that, though, because it's like, I'm not letting anybody off the hook. I'm not letting the guilty people off the hook. As a matter of fact, I'm keeping the finger squarely pointed at the people who are still imposing these systems right now. And if you have somebody, you take the imperial colonized system and all that, and you put that on, and then you sell out governments and all of that, whether you're in Africa or America, wherever, yeah, you point directly at them. But I'm not going to point it at innocent people who are dealing with the same stuff I'm dealing with. Who are dealing with, I didn't want to go to Nigeria for years because I'm listening, man, them Nigerians, they're going to get you. Them Nigerians going to scam you. Them Nigerians going to get you. It was the Nigerians when I went to Nigeria, when I finally said, you know what? Y'all keep telling me this too much. I might need to go see for myself. And I went to go see for myself, and I chose to be around a different caliber of person so I didn't have that experience. Not that it doesn't mean that I wouldn't have that experience. No, it's just that I'm choosing my company well. I'm analyzing. I'm putting on my street smarts. I'm like, okay, I'm not investing in anything. I'm not going over here green. I'm sitting there watching the situation. And as a result of that, there were people who were willing to put me on game. I said, okay, this is how you get the money. Oh, really? Oh, I got that in Nigeria. I got the real knowledge drop in Nigeria. But if I never went to Nigeria and had the conversation because I'm listening to somebody else, then I would not have that piece of information. So anyway, y'all know what to do. Subscribe, like, share, get ready to go on one of these amazing African adventures. Join us. Ghana, Tanzania, Kenya, Seychelles, South Africa, Egypt. Nigeria is coming down the pike. Be a part of what we're doing, and you'll be amazed at how your life will change. But don't take my word for it, because I got a whole group of people that will tell you exactly what their experience is like when they go on one of these amazing adventures. Until next time, again, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Be sure to tell somebody that we over here. We loving both sides. That's right. North America, South America, the continent of Africa, bridging the gap, having real conversations, and recognizing the power of not being overgeneralizing. All right, here we go. Tanzania. I want to welcome everybody to Tanzania. Now, does everybody know the theme for this trip is to what? Relax and what? Enjoy. So I think everybody can tell we're going to have a good time already.
Apply the heat and the balloon will rise.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down soon. Try to catch me howling at the moon.
Drop line, it was special. It was special.
Ready for this? Well, hello? Hello? Where? Good to see you.
How you feeling?
Last time I saw you was in Ghana. Hello, everybody.
If we can continue to find a way to bridge our differences and, really come together, come to Africa. A lot of people really want to come here. This trip is not only a trip, but it really is an experience, and it's a learning experience. We've already learned so much just at the table. So I'm excited to be here. I'm glad to be here, and I can't wait to continue to learn and just be with all of y'all.
I quite didn't want to come to Africa, okay? And when I got here, they were so kind. And I like, oh my gracious, then I got to meet you guys, and y'all started telling me about the trip. And I said, okay, this is gonna be fun. So now I'm kind of excited. My wife said, well, you ain't got no excitement, but now I'm looking forward. So, hey, I'm hoping one day I can have the same testimony as you guys, and I'm just glad to be here.
Our second Maximum Impact experience, and I've been singing your praises, Jay, hands down. If you want to go to Africa, you got to do it with Jay. There's no other way, no other way. And to be honest with you, when Renee, Jeff, James signed up for this, I'm like, we can't let y'all go without us. And so here we are.
It's just the most interesting thing in the world to come to a place such as this. It's beautiful. I mean, this is a beautiful resort. You all seem like very wonderful people. We all have something in common. We're all connected. We all are connected.
This is my second trip with Maximum Impact. I was in Ghana July last year, and I brought my daughters with me. And they had a pretty rough experience because they had a lot of expectations that weren't realistic. But it took them 2 weeks to decompress and then to understand fully the magic that had happened on that trip.
This is my mom, Claudette, and I'm very grateful that she brought me here. This is her first trip with the group, but she's been to Africa like 3 times. And again, I'm very grateful that she brought me here.
This is my second trip, and I'm going to have a third, a fourth, and a fifth. And I tell you, I'm still excited about all the things that I'm experiencing. And you would think I've been to many countries, I traveled a lot, but I've never been to a country where people look like me. Everywhere I went, I always had to fit in. And that, was kind of traumatic for me after coming here and being received the way I was.
I'm just looking forward to the whole itinerary. It looks really, I know it's really well organized, and I'm looking forward to the whole thing. So glad to meet everybody and look forward to meeting in person and talking.
Hi, my name is LaDanya. These are my parents, and I'm really excited to be here. I'm 21 years old, and thank you for hosting this trip and bringing us all here.
Hi, I'm Faith Benson-Lettle. These are my parents. I'm from Akron as well. This is my college graduation gift.
I got 18 grandkids and 9 great-grandkids, and all of them want to come. because I was so excited, thanks to Jay. I was so, look, I walked through the streets of Philadelphia lifting up Africa. You gotta go. I said, if you're Afro-American, you write that down on whatever form, you need to go to Africa.
Travel a lot, and over the last couple years, I really wanted to do a deep discovery of Africa, all the African countries, and I found Jay, and I said, that's the way I want to do it. So we were very appreciative.
This is my sister Linda, and the reason I'm here is because Linda spoke so highly of the trip she was on in Ghana. Coming to Africa, I liked it. It's something different. You can connecting with the people here, connecting with the workers here. I like that idea and that approach. So I wanted to come and see for myself.
I remember it was November 2020 when Mr. J. Cameron visited us. It was during COVID pandemic. Imagine we have 32 rooms, but we was accommodating only one guest, who was J. Cameron. Then J. Cameron told me, I promise you I'll bring you a group. Okay. On behalf of Airport Planet Lodge, we are here to express our sincere gratitude to host you here today.
I can't imagine doing Africa without being on a Maximum Impact tour, because being with a group like this just adds so much more to it.